Hello and welcome to Talking WoW, the podcast where we talk about World of Warcraft, believe it or not. My name is Tom, and today we are going to be talking about aging in Azeroth, leveling up in real life and in World of Warcraft. And to do that, we have a very, very special guest from the podcast Recruit a Friend. It's Sean. Hey, Sean.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Oh, you're so welcome. We're so glad to have you here to talk about getting older. And the expert of getting older, my co-host, is also here, Marty.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here. If you were able to actually see our video, you would see that there's basically just a skeleton on the screen. In the recording, we did choose to go to Stormwind, so I couldn't bring an undead. But I think it all works out.
It does. And as one orc said to another one time, times change. And, you know, we're all getting a little bit older as we play this game that has been out for a long time. But before we get into the subject matter, just a little bit, Sean has a podcast called Recruit a Friend where Sean is interviewing people, content creators from the World of Warcraft community, getting to know them a bit better. And today we're getting to know Sean a little bit better. We've turned the tables, and Sean has very kindly allowed us to cherry pick something from his podcast and put it into our podcast, which is a quick fire round to get to know Sean just a little bit better. So this is going to be really beneficial for me and Marty as well, to get to know Sean a little bit better before we get started. So it's a quick fire round, so I better honor those terms and let's get started. Are you ready for this, Sean?
I'm ready. I don't know that I've ever quick fired the questions, but I'm ready.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word is serendipity.
What is your least favorite word?
No.
What sound or noise do you love?
I love the sound of rain.
What sound or noise do you hate?
My dog is doing it right now. She chews on her foot, but like it's not like just gentle chewing on the nails. I will send you a photo after, but she has the entire paw halfway down her throat. And if you've ever had anything in your that deep down your throat, imagine the sound that make, and that is the horrible sound that is happening.
We can all hear it. We can all hear it in our minds right now.
Yeah.
What is your favorite dungeon in World of Warcraft, I imagine?
I'm glad we specified. I'm going to say, I'm going to go with an oldie but a goodie, Dead Mines. It was my first love and my favorite.
Love that. What is your least favorite dungeon?
Grimrail Depot can die a fiery death.
Maybe a great segue here, but what is your favorite curse word?
My favorite curse word, I'm going to have to go with the tried and true fuck.
What is your favorite raid?
My favorite raid, I'm going to say, you know what, I really liked Vault of the Incarnates, but I'm going to say Nighthold, and not for the reasons most people would think, but because I really, really love the transmog there.
What is your least favorite raid?
Sepulchre are the first ones.
And if Azeroth is real, where would you call home? Is it Stormwind?
Yeah, I'm going to say Stormwind.
Brilliant.
I'm a big fan of, I need plumbing. So Stormwind or Silvermoon, those are my options, basically.
And that's the quick fire round. We did it very quickly. Sean, I feel like I know you so well now. I feel like we've been friends for years.
I just love how we, invite a guest and get them to do all the work on our podcast.
It's the way to do it, Marty. It's the key to success.
Doing it right.
So yes, we have got to know Sean a little bit better, but I suppose something we do like to ask our guests when they come onto this show, and I guess specifically for this topic where we're talking about, getting older in real life and getting older in Azeroth, because like I say, the game has been around for a long time. Sean, how did you begin your journey in World of Warcraft?
So I was an MMO player from way back. Played EverQuest 1 with my brother and a friend of ours, Joe. And then
hey, Joe.
EverQuest he might be listening. And then EverQuest 2 came out around the same time as Warcraft, and I had a group of friends that were like hardcore into, they were going to switch to WoW. We had played City of Heroes, and there was a Warhammer game we had played for a bit. They were hardcore into Warcraft, and I was like, no, man, listen, it's a baby game for babies. Look at those cartoon graphics. I need to play EverQuest 2. It's ultra realistic. That's where I'm going to be. And about 6 months into EverQuest 2, and them, they were both Night Elf rogues, them going around Terran Mill, making lives miserable for low-level Horde characters. I was like, you know what, okay, let's make the swap. And I swapped over to Azeroth and never looked back. And I played from that point forward. That was about 6 months into vanilla.
I love that as well. You're like, no, I'm not playing that game. Cartoony graphics. Literally before we started recording, we're all very excited about Sean's transmog and how beautiful that looks. So again, times change, don't they, Sean?
yeah. I got older. I realized I love this art style.
In a way, it is quite evergreen, though. It's something that I know Marty says a lot about the graphics in World of Warcraft, and I think that is one of the initial things you sometimes hear about someone that doesn't play World of Warcraft. They go, oh, but look at it, it's cartoony. But when you think about it, it's like, oh, how old is this game now? Nearly 15, 20 years, and the graphics still hold up very well. Of course, they've made improvements to those, but it holds up and stands the test of time.
It's that thing that even in the old zones still looks good. I mean, sure, you can see that polygon levels are lower and stuff like that, but some of those zones still looks beautiful today.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's just something that as I got older, it definitely grew on me. I was like, okay, you know what, this is, and now I lament when art styles aren't like that. Even the movie did such a really good job of capturing the way the game looks in real life. Yeah,
we might have to leave Hellfire Peninsula out of that comment, Marty, but everything else, absolutely. Yeah, it has a great skybox though.
Yeah. It's PTSD from when it launched, and it was like, okay, we need to get livers from these boar tusks or whatever, and it was like, okay, only 1 out of every 15 of them drops it, and there's only 8 in the zone, and everybody's farming.
Yeah, who's been extracting the livers from these boars? Why don't they all have one?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know for myself, I think the journey of World of Warcraft, something that's been very close through that journey is the connections that I've made in game, and some of those connections obviously fall by the wayside, just friendships in real life. But Sean, what about you? How have you found your virtual in-game connections, and has that had an impact on your life as you've gone through the ages in Warcraft and in real life?
Yeah, definitely. So there's two phases to my Warcraft journey. Phase 1 is vanilla through to the end of ICC. And that would have been very much, I was playing with people that I knew in real life, friends that I had for a considerable amount of time. And that was the majority of my interaction, was being with those guys and girls. And then I took a 10-year hiatus. So after ICC, I joined the Canadian Navy. And I was like, you know what? I need to focus on my career. There's the possibility that this game might be too much of a distraction for me. So I quit the game, and I walked away. And I came back in the very end of 8.2. It was the Shadowlands trailer that brought me back, because I had left Icecrown Citadel after defeating Arthas. And the next thing that I saw of the game after my break was Icecrown Citadel. And I was like, oh,
that's wild. That is an amazing, you put it down and you pick it up. I mean, it's not at the same point, but it's like, hey, there's still stuff going on with the Lich King here again, and
yeah,
it's just also taking that length of a hiatus away from Warcraft. We always say, Wrath the Lich King probably is up there as the highs of World of Warcraft, and the numbers, the subscribers back that up as well. And then you return all these expectations, all these thoughts and feelings. For Shadowlands.
How was it coming back to the game after such a long break, and then especially at that point as well? Because I don't know how you feel about it, but a lot of people were not really super happy about Shadowlands.
So the quality of life changes in the game were an amazing way to come back to the game. So coming back and just so many things, talent trees, there was. Everything just felt easier. The LFG tool had been worked out so much better. Mythic Plus existed. It didn't exist before. All of the quality of life changes around the game were incredible. That was a massive change. And that's like, friends are like, oh, will you go back and play Classic? I'm like, I could never go back to Classic. Having to pay 100 gold to respec. There's no way I could ever go. I could ever go. And it takes a month and a half to farm 100 gold. Yeah. And I really enjoyed. So when I came back, I was like, okay, I'm going to just dive into the lore that I missed so I can get caught up.
That must have took a while.
Well, it lasted about a week and a half, and then I was like, you know what? I am going to get back into hardcore dedicated raiding.
Screw the story. I just want the loot.
Yeah. So I did a bit of it. I really enjoyed BFA's story, and leading into Shadowlands, I was really, really excited. And then, so a lot, probably too much, but a lot of my emotional attachment to the game is tied to the story of Arthas and the Warcraft 3 characters. And Wrath of the Lich King, the Wrathgate to this point is still my favorite cinematic in any game, period, across the board. And then I wasn't overly thrilled with the Jailer or a lot of the restrictions, the gameplay. Shadowlands was a bit of a letdown, but at that point the game had already had its hooks back in. I wasn't going to let it go for another 10 years. And I kept telling myself, there's going to be resolution to Arthas. There's going to be resolution to Arthas here. And, there was resolution to Fire Arthas. A little puff of Arthas, I guess. Yeah. Dragonflight is amazing.
Perfect way to end just that little, segment to Dragonflight, though. Dragonflight.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Before we move on a little bit, Marty,
Yes.
I gotta say, what about your in-game connections? Like, did you make friends, at the start of Warcraft? Is there anybody, in your life that you're still connected with to this day?
Oh, that's a hard... I need to think about that for a little bit. I don't know if I know anyone from back then. Oh, wait, you, right? Is that you? Is that what you're fishing for?
Yeah,
Is that... Okay, yeah. I met you.
That was your quick fire question.
Can't think of anyone. I don't think I actually answered your question, though. So now I'm in the second phase of my gameplay.
Yes.
And all of my friendships and my engagement is on through people that I've met online since coming back. My real life friends that I played with originally still play, but they have grown up and they play in a much more casual format now. And I am incapable of that.
One up us.
So, yeah.
How did you find that? So obviously, I think a lot of us have similar stories where before World of Warcraft launched, we were maybe coming there from another game, so we already had that core group established. How did you find that coming back after 10 years and, making those connections, whether it be in game or through communities?
It was tough, and it was a little scary. I actually had started listening to Warcraft podcasts before I came back. And there used to be a show that I think they ended in the middle of Shadowlands, but there used to be a show called World of Warcraft.
Yes.
That was hosted by Mike and Renata. And I think
that was like the longest running, the first ever World of Warcraft podcast, I think it was.
Something like that, yeah. It had been on. It was on for a very long time. So I started, when I made the decision to come back, I had started listening to that show. And they had a very active Discord and a very welcoming community. And so I got engaged there. I joined that. I ended up meeting my first new friends through that. There was a girl named Webley and a few others. And then I joined a guild they were in for some heroic raiding. And I very quickly realized I wanted more than just heroic raiding. So from there, applied to some other guilds and moved on. And each time I had stopped at a new guild along the way. So yeah, in 8.3, by the end of 8.3, I had joined a guild and we killed Mythic N'Zoth, which was pretty good after having been gone for 10 years, I thought, coming back. And
oh yeah, it is, yeah.
Mythic boss. But yeah.
You still got it, Sean. You still got it.
Still got it, yeah. But it was tough. It was scary at first, but the Warcraft community is just, I know there's a lot of memes online about how toxic Warcraft is and how bad the community is, but that has not been my experience, whether that's through luck or what. Every I shouldn't say every, with the exception of one, every stop along the way and every group of people I've encountered have been just delightful. They're welcoming, they're engaging, and they just want people to have fun. They want to play with people that want to have fun. So there's a whole aspect to the game that I guess I just never see of these people that are not great. So hopefully it stays that way.
I mean, they're definitely out there, but I'm finding as well, there are just like these pockets of awesomeness. And, it's like going for a lovely walk down the street, everything's fine. Occasionally you'll step in dog poop, but, you just got to keep on walking and avoid those dog poops because they're out there. But there are some like incredible people out in the community, and, you're a content creator yourself in this World of Warcraft community. You just find that when you do pull that curtain back a little bit and get to know people just a little bit more, because that's what we do as content creators. We're trying to get to know people a little bit more. That it's just, we are all connected, and, there is something really comforting about that. And I know for myself, after, taking like 2 years off Warcraft, coming back and just finding those connections again, like it means everything. Like I think without them, it's not the game.
Yeah.
It's not the game that it is without those.
Yeah, without the people, you might as well play a single player game, right? It's not like we're NPCs out here, you're not spending your time with 19, robots. It's 19 other people with hopefully the same goals, the same wants from the game, and the same, culture, personality, atmosphere for the guild. That's the most important thing. You can go anywhere to kill bosses, but finding those people that you want to spend your time with, I imagine you guys, you look forward to messaging each other every day. You look forward to the engagement.
I don't. No.
It's a contractual obligation.
Is it that guy messaging me again? Jeez.
Oh, no. That guy I met at Warcraft 20 years ago, he's still messaging me. I can't get rid of him.
I love it.
But, I have to agree with you 100% that, if you want to kill bosses, you can always do that. I have been, because there was a long point where I was just hopping from guild to guild, trying to find, my new home. And there were definitely a few of them on the way where I was like, yeah, I'm basically just here to kill bosses. I'm not really having fun with this group of people. So 100% agree. You can always find that place where you just kill them and get your loot, and then you're out of there afterwards. But you could also find those really amazing home where you're sitting, too long after you're done raiding, just talking and, things like that. So,
yep.
Marty touched on it a little bit with you being away from the game for so long, Sean, but have you adapted to content in World of Warcraft? Because how you left it in Wrath of the Lich King is definitely not how you picked it up in Shadowlands. There's been so many features that we could list here that have been introduced in that time. But like, how did you start that? How did you just log into the game and be like, well, obviously you need to level up, but like, where did you start and how did you do that?
Well, your character's still there? Question mark.
They were, yeah. So they had all been, I guess they were deactivated, but they were all still there. The biggest problem I had was they don't list on your account when they go deactive or inactive. They switch to like their name changes to like a bunch of weird letters and numbers, and then they just don't show up in the character select screen anymore. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back in and find my characters. But when I looked at the screen, I couldn't see what servers I had characters on. It was just a list of servers with no characters listed on any of them. So then I was like, what server was I on? So I had to try and like track down what servers I had been on. I ended up going through every single server on the list to see if I had any characters on them that had been deactivated. Found them all. Found my original paladin. I started as a rogue, but when Burning Crusade launched, I swapped to Blood Elf Paladin, and at that point never looked back. So I found him again and then reactivated him and started going from there. I think I jumped. I would have been like level 57 or something. Or, no, I would have been, because there was no level squish then. So I would have been 70, because 70 was the cap at the end of Wrath.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would have been level 70.
Oh. Or was it 80? No,
it might have been 80. No, it was 80 because 70 was BF. It was
70
BC,
was Burning
so
Crusade.
It was 80. So I was level 80. I jumped right in, And I went right through the BFA story, and I loved it. The BFA story, I really, really enjoyed the BFA story. I did the Horde side, and then I leveled an Alliance side character as well, and did the Alliance story. And I was like, man, if all of it is like this, I can't wait to go back. And then didn't go back because I started raiding and Mythic Plussing and all that stuff. But I did eventually go back and look at stuff. Really sad I missed Garrisons. I feel like that would have been my jam. I am not much of a fan.
You didn't miss anything. Don't worry.
Oh, no. Don't get us started on that again.
I did try to level in Cataclysm, but I started in Vashir, and that lasted about 4 seahorses worth of questing before.
At the time, I was a big fan of the Vashir. I don't think I've been back since, but I think it's one of those things you just had to experience it at the time. And there's probably a lot of things in World of Warcraft. Garrisons, I will say, was something you probably just had to experience at the time, because although we do shit on it sometimes, like it was a fun feature at the start, but then it just overshadowed everything, and everyone just spent the whole expansion there.
I think the issue was that people didn't really you didn't see other people in that whole expansion, because everyone was in their own garrisons most of the time. So yeah, that was one of the
capital
main
cities
issues.
Just empty.
Pretty much, yeah, because you had everything you needed in your garrisons. You had an auction house, you had banks, you had everything. So you just Hearthstone back there and just spend your whole day there, except when you were out raiding or doing dungeons. So
there was a new faction that established itself in the capital cities called the Tumbleweeds, and they just rose up and took over everything.
Do you guys think that's why they haven't had a bigger push for player housing? Do you think they looked at garrisons and thought, if we do this again, no one's going to be in the capital cities, and we want these to be populated?
I don't know, because when you look at something like Final Fantasy, 14? They do have the way that they handle player housing over there works quite well. So, I mean, I can't see why it wouldn't be able to work, but it is potentially why Blizzard hasn't pulled the trigger on it.
I think if they did something like Final Fantasy 14, and boy, this could be a totally different episode we're getting into here, maybe that would work. You have a district in Stormwind or Orgrimmar that you can go visit, and you buy plots. I don't know if I want that drama in World of Warcraft, so let's move on.
I mean,
but we're talking...
That's another episode we can record another day. We're going to get Sean back and talk about player housing.
Love it.
Absolutely. So we're talking also about like adapting to new content, and it really does apply to Sean quite a lot because you were just away from the game for so long. But I'll start with Marty on this one. Marty, is there something in World of Warcraft that, like back in the day, and I guess I'm saying that like an old person, but back when Warcraft first came out, or in those first several expansions, was there something there that you were just like, yes, I just like doing this? And is there just something now that you're like, actually, I don't enjoy that anymore? Marty loves everything. Sean, what about you?
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm thinking about the question, and like, I don't think there's nothing that springs to mind straight away. So yeah, maybe if Sean has something, then feel free to jump in.
I do actually, yeah. So every Saturday and Sunday morning, I would sit down with my coffee, and I would do my farm route. So it was mining in vanilla. I would do like the Burning Steppes area. And then it was the same in BC and in Wrath. I had mining as one of my things. And that was like my Saturday morning, my Sunday morning, like the first 2 or 3 hours would just be spent doing that. I've always been an early morning person. So it would be before any of my friends were up. It would just be me doing that. But since coming back, I can't stand it. And I think it's because I came back with Nazjatar and trying to find what level the nodes were on in Nazjatar was so frustrating. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to... So now every single character I have, I think I have 15 characters. Every single one is an enchanter and an alchemist for the longer flasks. And I run so many dungeons I can DE them. And that was the other thing, is that back then I was much less willing to run groups without my friends, and now I don't care. I will run as a tank. Finding groups is easy, so I will just log on and run dungeons all day. But yeah, I really used to really enjoy that little morning route of farming, and I don't do it anymore. And hopefully you can't hear my dog.
Oh, we can. We very much enjoy background sounds, especially pets.
Okay.
That's we consider that a contribution to the episode.
She's on her back right now, like flipping back and forth and making dog sounds into the arm of the sofa.
Did you come up with something, Marty, or did you're just like, no, he just loves Warcraft that much?
I just
really can't find anything.
I'm just that World of Warcraft shill. I love everything. Always have. Nothing has ever been bad.
I also miss phased instances or phased zones. Wrath of the Lich King, I think, was the first expansion to do it, where through ICC, like the zone would change and what you could see based on what was happening. And it doesn't seem like they do that anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I feel like they do, but they just integrated it in a certain way now that it seems less obvious. But there's definitely phasing in the game and I know this just because I was doing the Exiles Reach the other day, and there's a like an encounter there that as soon as you click on something changes, and somebody did that before me because I forgot to pick up the quest. So I was stuck down at the bottom of this area with spiders, very nasty, and they clicked it and then they just phased away, and I was like, oh, bye. So okay. I think it's still there.
I think they still do it some places, but I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if they've done anything like this in Dragonflight. Nothing springs to mind, but I know in Shadowlands they actually did in the very last zone. You could see all the anima flow into the moor, but then when you kill the last boss of that raid, that went away because obviously you made a change to the world. So that's like the last very large, very notable thing that I remember.
That's like skybox changes, though, isn't it?
But still, it's a change. So
you know what? You mentioned Dragonflight, and I instantly thought of the Obsidian Citadel section there, where Notharis is. If you haven't done that quest chain yet to unlock that, there's Dejarin all over the place fighting.
That is actually correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it exists. I take it back.
But I think I don't think that's something that I don't particularly like doing like the original question. But that's definitely something that has changed, and I think that's my approach to dungeons. Whereas back in the days when there was like you were on this server, and if you wanted to do dungeons, then you have to do dungeons with people on this server. So everyone had a reputation. So obviously back then I didn't have a big issue just jumping in with randoms because I usually knew if someone was a bad egg or not before I invited them to a group. Where these days I think I can be a little bit more hesitant to jump into Mythic Plus, for instance, with people that I don't know because of toxicity can happen, especially in hierarchies. So I think that is. It's not that I don't love doing it anymore, but I just think my approach to it has changed a little bit over time.
Something that I used to enjoy doing, and I used to do all the time, especially the start of Warcraft, and used to really annoy Marty. I was always leveling alts. Like back in Classic, I was just always leveling alts, and Marty was, I think, focusing on one character, and we were managing a guild at the time as well. So obviously, you got to gear everyone up and progress that way. And I remember specifically a time where Marty was like, hey, like we need somebody to help do this dungeon. And I was like, no, I'm leveling my level 14 mage right now. That's my priority. And I know Marty was like, what an asshole. Just, can't put down his level 14 mage just to come help out. But I was just so
wrong. That's what I thought.
Yeah, he hated me before we got to each other.
Hate is a strong word.
It's stronger than that. But I'm going back to like Classic and Hardcore Classic right now. I'm saying to Marty, like, I've missed this class fantasy. Like, all classes feel a bit different, and like a lot different to how they feel in retail now. There's a lot of similarities because of balancing. And I think, like, at a certain point in Burning Crusade, I just stuck to one class and just focused all my energy into that until Dragonflight. And that's just something I don't do anymore. I don't really level alts anymore. I've just usually just focus on one character, whereas back in the day, I'm playing for, hours and hours, leveling all these characters. I don't know where they're going. I'm sitting in my chair till, the sun comes up. That's also something I'm not doing anymore because, your back gets worse as you
So
get
sorry.
older as well. You just can't sit in a chair. Like if we're just
Yeah.
going to basics, you just can't sit in a chair for more than 2 hours a day anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, just that whole thing changed for me.
Did everybody buy standing desks? I bought a desk that converts
yeah.
to standing.
Yep.
We're all standing desks here, aren't we? You know,
Standing
let's
right
not
now.
beat around. Let's not beat around the bush. And there's going to be no like advert for standing desk here, or it would be perfect, wouldn't it? So we are drawing to a close here, but before we move on and, you know, get out of our chairs and rest our weary bones, I have a final question for you both. And I'll start with Sean for this one. What do you think the future of World of Warcraft looks like? So we've had about 20 years now, and in that time, the game has evolved. You've been away for 10 of it, Sean. But what do you think that looks like? Do you think, you know, in 20 years' time, we're going to be, you know, inviting you on the podcast again, talking about like what changed in the last 20 years? That might not happen. But what do you see potentially could change over the next, you know, 10, 15 years in World of Warcraft?
I think a good model is EverQuest. Even though EverQuest 2 came out, the first EverQuest is still active. People still play it. The servers are still up. So I think even if Blizzard stops actively supporting and putting out new content, I think there's just too much life dedicated by so many people to this game for it to not at least still be there in like a zero state where people can just log in and do their day-to-day stuff and go and collect their mounts and collect their pets and everything. I would love to see it go to 20 years. I don't think I don't think you can release a sequel to it. I think if they get to a point when it's enough, I think it just goes off to something else. I don't think they can release a sequel because there's too much. Look at people's accounts, right? I was gone for 10 years, and even I have, like, there's titles and stuff and tabards that I have that you can't get anymore. And it's just
It's
like,
an investment, right? It's just like,
yeah,
if you take this away, and my heart goes out to, like, you know, people who played in China who, you know, the servers got taken offline. It's like, that must be heartbreaking because we really do pour our heart and souls into these characters and these accounts. And, you know, I think the thought of it, like, yeah, we're not going to be on this planet forever, but like our World of Warcraft accounts will be. So there's something comforting in that.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave this in my will to my children. Like, okay, now you are a level 80 paladin. I expect you to do your dailies.
What about you, Marty? What do you see happening as in the future of World of Warcraft and how you play the game as well?
I mean, is anything going to change? Because I think 20 years ago, I played it pretty much the same way as I do today, and that is as much as possible, as life allows it to. And back then, I arranged my life around World of Warcraft. I still do this today, so, you know, I don't think that will change. I'm looking forward to in 20 years' time when we're going to play Battle for Azeroth once again.
BFA Classic or
No,
BFA.
it's just we go back and just do it again.
Okay, and because we're so old, we actually forgot it used to be an expansion. So we're like, oh, there's something about this that seems familiar, but okay, you're just saying it's new.
It's like that meme of the old lady in the walker. Back in my day, Jaina was the boss of a raid. Here, Grandma.
One thing, I'm not going to say I'm worried about it, but I will say I'm worried about it, just, you know, cause some dramatics here. In Dragonflight, we got dragon riding and we got dragon races. I can't imagine doing that in 20, 25 years' time. Like, I don't think I'm going to have the reflexes to do that. And it's going to be interesting to see how World of Warcraft still caters for its core original market that, let's say in 20 years' time, started the game 40 years ago, and also trying to cater for up-and-coming generations that are like, oh my God, look at those cartoon graphics. So that is just like, I don't know where we're going to go in the future. And
it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter that you're all older, 20 years older, because in 20 years' time, we will all have mind links and stuff like that. So you'll just be inside of Azeroth for real.
Mm-hmm. It's the oasis.
Yep.
I will just let everyone ponder that thought, and just for goodness sake, don't go to Goldshire. And with that, we are out of time. Unfortunately, we could talk about this for a very long time. We could probably talk about it for the next 20 years, the last 20 years about World of Warcraft. But unfortunately, we do not have time for that. But Sean, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your thoughts and your conversation on this subject. And we have links to your podcast, the Recruit a Friend podcast, in our show notes. So we definitely recommend that you check that out. But thank you again, Sean, for being here.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to invite you to be guests in season 4 so that we can talk for longer.
There we go. It's in, I was going to say it's written in stone. That'll do. I've been Tom. That's been Marty. That's been Sean. And we have been talking WoW.
Thanks for tuning in, champion. Did you enjoy this episode of Talking WoW? If so, why not drop a review on your podcast catcher of choice or leave us a comment? You can find Talking WoW on Twitter or YouTube over at Talking WoW. Hope to see you again soon.